Originally founded as the Portsmouth Spartans in 1930,
in 1934, the team found a new home
in the city of Detroit, Michigan,
and changed their name to the Lions.
The early years of the Lions franchise were fruitful, winning 4 world championships in the pre-Super Bowl era, the last of which coming in 1957. They were stalwarts in the infancy of the NFL, a dynasty of the old guard. But shortly after their last title, everything would change.
Long enough, it is no good.
Uh-oh.
That's unbelievable, and you know it.
We have a 10-second runoff, so by rule, the game is over.
In the end zone, it is caught for the win.
From 1950 to 1958, Hall of Famer Bobby Lane quarterbacked the dominant Detroit Lions, bringing home 3 of the franchise's 4 world championship titles. Bobby was known for his leadership and tenacity, but most importantly, embodied Detroit's toughness, making him the perfect fit for a blue-collar city built by hard-working auto factory linemen. If there was ever a quarterback made to lead the Lions, it was Bobby Lane. However, in 1957, after the Lions took home their 3rd championship in 6 seasons with Lane on the sidelines due to injury, the franchise took a turn. The Lions, too smart for their own good, and feeling justified by their success, believed they could win without Bobby, and traded him at the beginning of the 1958 season. Lane was insulted by the Lions' decision, and as he was cleaning out his locker before heading to Pittsburgh, was famously quoted saying that the Lions wouldn't win a championship for another 50 years.
Knowing your father as you did, isn't he capable of something like that?
Oh, sure. He might have had a few sweet words in between.
In that moment, the curse of Bobby Lane took its first breath, and the Lions' infamous decades of futility began. In the 1960s, the Lions failed to make the playoffs, including 7 losing seasons for a cumulative record of 73, 76, and 13. In 1970, after 12 seasons without a division championship or playoff berth, the playoff drought ended, but Detroit failed to cure their playoff woes, losing to the Cowboys in the divisional round 5-0.
That's going to be it. That's the end of the ball game. The final score, Dallas 5, Detroit 0.
That would prove to be their only shot to end the streak, as the Lions stumbled through the 70s, failing to make the playoffs again, and closing out the decade with another below 500 record. Things began looking up to start the 80s, when the Lions drafted All-American Heisman Trophy winning running back Billy Sims with the number 1 overall pick. Sims was electric in his first season with Detroit, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, and as a result, the Lions' record improved, winning 9 games in 1980 and 8 games in 1981. In 1982, the Lions ended another decade-long playoff drought when they faced off against the NFC best Washington Redskins. There was a lot of hype surrounding the game for Lions fans, but once again, their efforts were fruitless, as they got trounced by top-seeded Washington 31-6. 1984, Bobby came knocking once again, and tragedy struck the Lions franchise. In an October game at the Metrodome, a stadium known for its horrific turf, the Lions faced off against division rival Minnesota. With the Lions trailing 14-7 in the 3rd quarter, Sims took a toss sweep right, but as he tried to cut, his right foot caught on the turf, and he went down.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Billy Sims holding his right knee.
The injury, originally believed to be a knee sprain, caused nerve damage in Billy's right knee. Despite his efforts, Billy failed to regain full feeling in the joint, and as a result, never played again. For the remainder of the 1980s, the same old Lions were back. Detroit failed to make the playoffs after '83, and recorded 6 straight losing seasons to close out the decade. It was more of the same. However, in 1989, with so much heartache throughout the 80s, there was one bright spot. The Lions drafted another Heisman Trophy winning running back, this time out of Oklahoma State, named Barry. Barry Sanders, the electrifying, record-breaking running back from Wichita, Kansas, was selected number 3 overall by the Lions and crowned the new savior in Detroit.
Detroit Lions select Barry Sanders, running back of Oklahoma State.
Although Barry's first 2 seasons in Detroit were losing ones, he was remarkable, often leaving fans' jaws and opposing players on the ground as he juked and cut his way to the end zone. The Lions finally felt they had someone to build around, and built around them they did. With Wayne Fontes on the sidelines and Barry Sanders in the backfield, the Lions ran all the way to their first Central Division crown in nearly a decade, winning 12 games for the first time in franchise history. In their first playoff game since 1983, the Pontiac Silverdome was packed with starved fans dying to see a 3-decade-long playoff winless streak finally come to an end. And end it did. The Lions dominated the Cowboys in the divisional round 38-6, thanks to 3 touchdown passes from Eric Kramer and a patented 47-yard touchdown run from Barry.
Just, go to their homes and read. Sanders still on his feet, and Sanders is gone.
With the decisive win over Dallas, the Lions advanced to their first NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl era. Lions prideful were overcome with happiness, having finally cured their playoff woes. But little did they know that shortly after the streak came to an end, another one would begin. The following week, the Lions were blown out by the far superior Washington Redskins, 41-10. The Redskins went on to win the Super Bowl, and the Lions went home. Sad to have fallen short, but filled with a blissful ignorance that they were finally close to winning a championship. Close, they were not, as once again, good old Bobby came calling. The next offseason, after losing one promising young guard, Mike Utley, to a career-ending injury that left him paralyzed, the Lions lost their other guard, when Eric Andelsek was tragically struck and killed by a semi-truck in his front yard. Earlier that summer, the Lions also lost their defensive back coach Len Fontes, brother of head coach Wayne Fontes, when he passed away suddenly from a heart attack. Distracted and filled with sadness, the Lions regressed tremendously, finishing the 92 season 5-11 and missing the playoffs. After a disappointing season, Detroit was back in 93. They won the NFC Central for the second time in 3 years and were matched up with division rival Green Bay in the wildcard round. The game was close, and with the Lions clinging to a late lead in the fourth quarter, all they needed was a stop. The Packers, led by a young gunslinger Brett Favre, were driving, trailing by 3, needing a touchdown to win it, and with only a little time left on the clock, Favre found Sterling Sharp for an improbable 40-yard touchdown.
Wide open. Touchdown! Sterling Sharp. Open. He got away and scored the touchdown with 55 seconds left.
Green Bay closed out the Lions on defense, and Detroit fans were reminded, once again, that the curse of Bobby Lane was far from finished.
They're going to win it! The Packers are going to win it!
Over the next 4 seasons, the Lions would make the playoffs 3 more times, losing all 3 times in the first round. After another losing season in 98, the Lions received a strange fax from Wichita, Kansas right before training camp. All-Pro and future Hall of Famer Barry Sanders decided to hang up the cleats.
First Jordan, then Gretzky, then Elway, now this, which unlike the others was completely unexpected.
The Lions and Detroiters were devastated, and even though the Lions made the playoffs without Sanders in '99, they lost, once again, in the wildcard round. All told, the Lions compiled a staggering 1-6 playoff record in the 90s, and failed to make it back to the NFC Championship game with Sanders and Fontes after the inspiring 1991 season. The new millennium brought the ugliest and unluckiest era in Detroit Lions franchise history, revealing that Bobby's curse was still in full effect. Poor coaching hires were a main factor to the downfall of the team during this period, including hires like Steve Mariucci, Rod Marinelli, and Marty Morningwig, who famously elected to take the wind against division rival Chicago. On a gusty day in the Windy City, Morningwig elected to defend after winning the coin toss in overtime, stating that the tumultuous conditions were the deciding factor in his choice. The Bears would go on to win the game with a field goal on their first drive.
Good! The Lions win the toss but never get the ball! Oh boy.
The man who oversaw the operation during this time period was Matt Millen, arguably the worst GM in the history of professional sports. During his tenure, he blew multiple high first-round draft picks on busts like Charles Rogers, Joey Harrington, and Mike Williams. Things got so bad under Millen that Lions fans attended games with bags over their heads, and chants of "Fire Millen" echoed through the rafters. Prior to the start of the 2008 season, owner William Clay Ford decided he had finally seen enough. Heeding the advice of fans, Ford fired Millen. October 12th, 2008. The curse was supposed to end this day. 50 years to the day Bobby Lane placed his curse, the Lions squared off against division rivals, Minnesota. The Lions and their fans felt the curse was indeed over, as the Lions led the Minnesota Vikings late in the fourth quarter, despite quarterback Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of his own end zone for a safety in the first quarter.
Poor guy, I don't even know if he realized it. And that's a safety.
Well, so much for me calling him savvy because he had no idea where he's on the field.
Down by 1 with 2 minutes left in the game, with Minnesota at their own 30-yard line, Vikings quarterback Gus Frerotte threw a bomb down the field. The pass was incomplete, but the Lions were flagged for a questionable pass interference penalty.
This is the penalty that drives me nuts now. It can be 50 yards long for a penalty. It looks like very incidental contact. I don't think they need to call that.
Let them play football. Let them play the game.
The Vikings would go on to kick a game-winning field goal with 12 seconds left, winning by 2, and it appeared the curse of Bobby Lane was not over. The Lions would lose their remaining games this season, becoming the first team in NFL history to finish 0-16. However, there was one silver lining from this season: the 2009 number 1 overall draft pick. To accompany the Lions' massive, lightning-fast receiver, Calvin Johnson, Detroit selected the big-armed, hard-nosed quarterback out of Georgia, Matthew Stafford.
With the first pick in the 2009 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Matthew Stafford.
Could Stafford be the saving grace from Bobby Lane's curse? It would make sense, as oddly enough, Bobby Lane and Matthew Stafford both went to the same high school, 62 years apart. That same year, the Lions brought in first-time head coach Jim Schwartz to lead the new QB wide receiver duo. Things were looking up for a change in Detroit, but it didn't take long for the Lions' new worst enemy to show its face.
Hey, Pete, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
But the play is not reviewable. Touchdown.
Personal foul, face mask, number 98 defense.
Hey, can I get explained that one?
In week 1 of the 2010 NFL season, the Calvin Johnson rule was born. The Lions, trailing Chicago 14-19 on the road, appeared to score the go-ahead touchdown with only a few seconds left on a pass from Sean Hill to Calvin Johnson. But then, after reviewing the play, the refs decided that Johnson failed to complete the process of the catch, as he lost the ball on the way up to celebrate.
The ruling on the field stands.
The play set off a frenzied debate about what exactly constituted a catch by NFL standards.
And live on the other side of the field, I looked, was like, oh damn, he called it. He called it. Oh no, he really caught that. But hey, let's get off the field, let's go. I mean, we talked about it in the locker room. It's like, do you think that was a catch? Hell yeah, that was a catch. I don't know how they didn't know it, but I'll take the win.
Years later, this led the NFL to redefine the rules of a catch, getting dubbed the Calvin Johnson rule. In 2011, the Lions were back in the playoffs for the first time since 1999, where they visited a star-studded New Orleans team led by a future Hall of Famer Drew Brees and Super Bowl winning head coach Sean Payton. The Lions had an early 14-7 lead with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. On a second down play, Lions defensive end Willie Young hit Drew Brees and appeared to force a fumble that was recovered by the Lions. However, a referee blew the whistle early, not allowing the Lions to advance the ball for what would have been a clear touchdown to put them up 21-7. The Lions failed to score on the ensuing drive, and the Saints took the lead after scoring 10 points on the next 2 possessions. The Saints never relinquished their lead, and the Lions' hopes to end the playoff win drought were dashed once again. The next season, the Lions were maligned again by the referees. In a Thanksgiving game against the Texans, the Lions were leading 24-14 midway through the third quarter. On 2nd and 10, Justin Forsett took a handoff up the middle and appeared to be tackled short of the sticks. Shockingly, Forsett got up after not hearing them whistle and raced to the end zone.
Forsett taking it all the way.
Jim Schwartz, knowing full well that Forsett was down, immediately challenged the call.
Play is not reviewable by Detroit. It'll be a 15-yard penalty on the kickoff, but the play is not reviewable. Touchdown.
This was the first year the NFL instituted automatic review on all scoring plays. At that time, the rule stated if you challenged a play already under review, it would no longer be eligible for review. Later that season, the NFL would change the rule, only penalizing the team a timeout and not the right to review the play. Bobby's curse still haunted the Lions, and even with their big three, the Lions failed to accomplish anything of substance. Schwartz was inevitably fired after 2 losing seasons, and former Colts head coach Jim Caldwell replaced him. Things got better under Caldwell when the Lions made the playoffs in 2014, only to have their Super Bowl aspirations dashed by yet another controversial call in their playoff matchup with the Cowboys. Midway through the fourth quarter with the Lions leading 20-17 and driving down the field, Anthony Hitchens appeared to interfere with Brandon Pettigrew on a 3rd down pass play. After initially throwing the flag, the refs inexplicably elected to pick up the penalty.
That's unbelievable! That's unbelievable, and you know it. You know it is, though. I know. How does that get overturned? How does that get overturned?
The Lions gave the ball to the Cowboys, relinquished their lead, and once again failed to win in the playoffs.
Lions season will come to an end in very disappointing fashion in Dallas.
The call drew a ton of media scrutiny, and even President Obama commented on the Lions' misfortune.
But even a Bears fan has to admit that was a little suspect.
Once again, the Lions finished another season with nothing to show for it. The following year, the Lions would regress under Caldwell, with poor officiating being the storyline once again. In Week 4 of the 2015 season, the Lions were driving down the field to take the lead against Seattle. On 3rd and 1, Stafford hit Calvin Johnson on a quick strike. As Johnson moved toward the goal line, the ball was knocked loose from his hands. As the ball bounced free on the ground, KJ Wright illegally punched it out of the end zone. The refs ruled it a touchback, and Seattle held on to win. Even though the Seattle game was another unfortunate event in Lions history, nothing perfectly exemplifies their 2015 season quite like the miracle in Motown. With only a few seconds left on the clock, the Lions appeared to stop Aaron Rodgers on 3rd and 10 as time expired. But then, the refs threw a flag on the play. The call was a face mask against the Lions, even though Rodgers was clearly tackled by the shoulder pad.
I don't know, did it get the face mask?
The Packers would get one untimed down, and to cap off a crazy series of events that could only happen to the Lions, Rodgers won it for the Packers on the game's final play.
It's going to get there. He turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in him? In the end zone, it is caught for the win! Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. A game ender for the Packers. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
In 2016, the Lions started off hot, winning 9 of their first 13 games and having a stranglehold on the NFC North. However, Stafford would injure his finger late in the year, and the Lions would lose their lead in the North, dropping all 3 of their final games, but still managing to make the playoffs. In the first round, the Lions faced off against the Seahawks, and were promptly showed the door in a 26-6 blowout loss in Seattle. The curse of Bobby Lane failed to let up. 2017 was marred by more officiating controversy. In a Week 3 game against the Falcons, the Lions were trailing by 4 with little time left in the fourth quarter. The Lions drove down the field, and on 3rd and goal, appeared to score on a quick screen to Golden Tate. However, the scoring play was reviewed, and the call was overturned. According to NFL rules, there is a 10-second runoff since the Lions were without timeouts. even though if the play had been called correctly on the field, the Lions would have easily had time to get on the line and run another play.
It's going to be real short. We're going to have a 10-second runoff because you're out of timeouts. That'll be the game. Okay.
Reviewing the play, the ruling on the field is changed. The runner was touched down at the half-a-yard line. He was short of the goal line. By rule, we would go back to a running clock and we have a 10-second runoff. So by rule, the game is over.
You can't end a game that way. I mean, that's just an unusual way to end a game.
The Lions would go on to miss the playoffs that year. Caldwell was fired, and Matt Patricia was hired. There was a lot of hype surrounding the Patricia hire. The Lions had a talented veteran roster, and Patricia was widely regarded as a defensive genius, thanks to his famous play call that won New England Super Bowl 49.
Yet reports out of training camp were grim,
with whispers that veterans were disgruntled by Patricia's Patriot Way coaching style, that included grueling practices and verbal confrontations during team meetings. Patricia's first game was indicative of his entire tenure as Lions head coach, when the team was blown out of their own building by the New York Jets 48-17. After the loss, Lions players never bought into Patricia's Patriot Way.
What led to the discord in 2018 with your former coach, Matt Patricia?
We was in a team meeting, and he showing plays of me, getting caught on in practice, which is cool, which is no problem. Just correct me as a player, help me get better, go about my day. But he added a little more fuel to it, and he had posted a picture off my Instagram into the team meeting room, told me to stop sucking this man private. He just trying to build character, trying to stamp his name on a team, I guess, trying to build a structure or something like that. So he kind of attacked so-called the best players on the team, so the younger guys can understand okay, he do that to Slay, he'll do that to me. So he's just trying to set the tone. But in my way, I don't think you need to set the tone in that type of way. Not telling another man that he need to be, he over here sucking another man. You know what? I'm like, nah, that don't work like that.
Wait, Darius, you're saying he did this in front of the team?
The whole team in the team meeting room. So we had a whole highlight tape of me getting caught on. Then he posted pictures and look at this, out here sucking on this man's because I posted a picture. And I'm like, what?
Over time, Pro Bowl players were slowly shipped away or retired. First it was Quandre Diggs, then Glover Quinn, and finally Darius Slay. Over the next 3 seasons, Patricia and Quinn failed to achieve a winning record, with a result of 14, 33, and 1 as heads of the franchise. On Thanksgiving Day 2020, the duo was fired, leaving the next regime with a roster lacking big-time playmakers thanks to poor drafts and a toxic culture. After the 2020 season, relatively new owner Sheila Ford Hamp, who took over for her mother Martha, was tasked with finding a GM and a coach that could finally rebuild the Lions. Her first move was to hire former Lions linebacker and Fox color commentator Chris Spielman to lead the search. Spielman landed on Dan Campbell, former Lions tight end and Saints assistant head coach, and Brad Holmes, Rams director of college scouting. Campbell, familiar with Detroit from his time as a player, envisioned building a tough, gritty team that represented the city in which they played. His first press conference drew laughs and snarky remarks from sports analysts across the country, but instilled a belief in the fans and players that this time might be different.
All right, here's what I do know, is that this team is going to take on the identity of this city, all right? And this city's been down and it found a way to get up. All right, it's found a way to overcome adversity. All right, and so this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth. All right, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right, and we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap and we're going to get up. And then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Holmes, another grinder, who clawed his way to the top of an NFL front office after starting as a media intern, was in lockstep with Campbell's vision for the team. And given that they already had franchise quarterback Matthew Stafford in place, the rebuild didn't seem so daunting. Until it did.
Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, and it is monster news. A blockbuster trade in the NFL. Detroit is dealing Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams in exchange for 2 future first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Jared Goff. These are 2 former number 1 overall picks trading places in an absolutely blockbuster trade that shakes things up both in Detroit and in LA.
The Lions lost the last member of their Big Three, but finally did right by their quarterback, over 60 years after the infamous trade of Bobby Lane. Could this finally break the curse? With all of his draft capital, Holmes rebuilt the team from the ground up. He selected All-Pros Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Pro Bowler Aiden Hutchinson in back-to-back drafts. The Lions finally felt they had the right pieces in place. But the 2022 season, the second under Holmes and Campbell, got off to a rocky start, with the Lions losing 6 of their first 7 games. Prior to their Week 9 matchup with the Packers, things were looking grim once again, until Hall of Famer Peyton Manning and Detroit Lions superfan Jeff Daniels decided enough was enough, and set out to end the curse of Bobby Lane.
Why the is there a bathtub in the end zone of Ford Field? Am I on drugs?
Trust me, Jeff. Google curse-breaking spell, and you'll come up with this. Fill a tub with 100 cups of water and a cup of salt.
Doesn't smell like water.
Because it's whiskey. Bobby Lane would have preferred that.
After the episode of Peyton's Places aired, Dan Campbell's culture finally took hold, and the Lions roared back. Detroit won 8 of their final 10 games, barely missing the playoffs due to a tiebreaker, but in the same breath ended the Packers' postseason hopes.
And Goff is looking to throw, and he throws it. It's caught for the first down by DJ Chark. The Lions have come into Lambeau, and they've knocked the Packers down and out.
With tons of hype going into the 2023 season, Brad Holmes cooked up his best draft class yet, selecting second-team All-Pro Sam Laporta and all-rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs, both of which were finalists for Offensive Rookie of the Year, as well as defensive studs Jack Campbell and Brian Branch. The Lions, everyone's 2023 breakout candidate, opened the season in Arrowhead against the defending Super Bowl champs, and let the NFL world know that the hype was real.
With some momentum to the end zone for the touchdown. Not the same old Lions, the 1-0 Lions.
They beat the Chiefs in Week 1 and rolled their way to a 12-5 record, only their second 12-win season in franchise history. They ended a 32-year division title drought, winning the NFC North for the first time since its inception, and hosted their first ever playoff game at Ford Field. In the wild card round, they took on the LA Rams, a game that featured 2 former number 1 overall picks, the quarterbacks that were traded for each other 3 years earlier. Former Lion legend Matthew Stafford gave Detroit all they could handle, but in the end, his effort wasn't enough, as the Lions beat the Rams in an instant classic, winning their first playoff game since 1991 and ending a 9-game playoff losing streak.
And Detroit, for the first time in 32 years, your Lions have won a playoff game. Have at it.
In the divisional round, the Lions hosted the Bucs in Baker Mayfield, where they won a close game on the back of their star offense that was sealed by a Derek Barnes interception.
Here comes that pressure. Mayfield in the middle, intercepted! It's Derek Barnes! It's up to San Francisco for the Lions!
The Lions were finally back in the NFC Championship game, where they faced off against the number 1 seeded 49ers. The Lions started off hot, building a massive 24-7 lead in the first half. But the second half was one to forget. Bad break after bad break plagued the Lions. A dropped 4th down conversion, a dropped interception, and fumble by rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs were all the 49ers needed to erase a 17-point deficit. Play after play in the second half reminded many Lions fans of their cursed past, and instilled belief in some that the curse may not be over. While the NFC Championship loss was a patented Lions meltdown that haunted the franchise for generations, it feels as though that this time may be different.
My hometown, I think they had a great season. Next year they're going to be better.
The Lions have a young, super talented roster, a shrewd GM, and a fiery head coach that gets the most out of his players. Only time may tell if the curse is truly over, but it feels like this time, the Lions will be a force to be reckoned with for years to come.
This is just the beginning, boys. Next week, at home, against whoever wants to come in here. Let's go. Win on 3, 1, 2, 3, win!
Thanks for watching. Be on the lookout for our top 10 NFL prospects video that'll be dropping soon. If you have any NFL or college football related content that you'd like to see, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section.